Hello, welcome back. I'm Abhishek De Silva, an undergraduate of the JAM Institute for Advanced Technology. Welcome back with the project named eShop, and today I'm going to discuss about the program of the product updating process. So here we can see our products have listed, and then let's start our discussion from this update button. So we can see when we click on this update button, we redirect into the update product.php file. And then if I describe a little about this page, here too we have used the same design as we had in the at product.php file, and here we have obtained the category, brand and the model of the relevant product, and then we are not allowing the user to change the category, brand and the model, and here we are displaying the product title, and we are allowing the user to change the product title, and we are not allowing the user to change the product condition and also the product color. Here too we have obtained the product color from our database, and here in the product quantity we are allowing the user to change the product quantity, and we are not allowing the user to change the cost per item, and then the delivery cost, those are available for changes, and we can change the product description also, and we are able to change the product images also. So then let's move to the code of this. Here is the relevant update button, and here I have used an on click, and I have used a function as send id, and within the brackets I have echoed the id of the relevant product that's stored in the array code selected data. So then let's move to our scripted.js file. In the function called send id, I have obtained the relevant parameters sent from my product.php file, and then here I have created the new XML HTTP request, and I have stored that in a variable called request. For the changes of the request, I have called an anonymous function here, and inside that anonymous function, using an if condition here, I have checked whether the status of the request is equal to 200 and the ready state is equal to 4, and if so, we are obtaining the response text of this request and storing that to in a variable called response here, and we using an if condition again here, and then we check whether the response is equal to the success. If so, we are changing the location of the window by using window.location and assigning the page as update product.php, and in the else of this if condition, it means the response is not equal to success, then we add the response. So then after that we use the open function here to represent the method and the file that we are sending our information to. We use in the get method here, and we send the information to send id process.php file, and we bind here the id using the name id here. As we use the get method, we know the information sent to the server side by binding it to the url, and I use a true here to depict I'm using ajax method here, and then after that I'm using request.send function to send the information to the server side. So then let's move to send id process.php file. In this send id process.php file, at first I have used the php script, and then I have started a session, and after that I have included the connection.php file where our connection with the database has coded, and then after that I have obtained the email of the user where we have stored that in the session called u, and storing that in a variable called email, and after that we are obtaining the id sent from the client side through the method called get, and storing that too in a variable called PID, and then after that I'm using a search function here with the query as select all from product table, where the ID of the product is equal to the product ID that we have obtained through the get method from our client side, and then I'm using an and here and check whether the user email is equal to the email that's stored in our session, and storing the values we get back through this search query in a variable called product results set, and after that I'm obtaining the number of results that we get through this num rows, and storing the number of rows in it in a variable called product num, and after that I'm again using if condition, and then I'm check whether the product number is equal to 1. If so, we obtain row by row that we get to the result set of this product result set and storing that in a variable called product data, and after that I'm creating a session called P and storing the product data that we get back from our database, and then I echo a message as success here, and then in the else part of this if condition I echo a message as something went wrong, please try again later. So then let's move to update product.php file. Here I have used the if condition and I have checked whether a session by the name u is set. If not, we are directing to the else part of that if condition, and inside the else part of that if condition I have used the closing and open PHP scripts, and then in between those two I have used this script tag, and I have added a message as you have to sign into the system to get access to this function, and I'm redirecting the user to the home page through the window.location equals home.php, and if a session by the name u has set, then again using if condition and check whether a session by the name p is set, and inside that I'm using the include here and including the connection.php file where the connection code with our database has coded, and after that I'm obtaining the session by the name p and storing that in a variable called product here. To the select tag of this product category I have used the attribute called disabled, and I have used the PHP script here, and I have used the search function, and I have used the query as select all from the category table where the category ID is equal to the category ID that we have stored in an array called product, and then I'm obtaining the results we get back through the database in a variable called category result set, and then I use the fetch as a function and getting the row that comes through the database and storing that in a variable called category data, and then as the option of this category data I echo the value that's stored by the name cat name in the array called category data, and then after that similarly in the select tag related to the product brand table I have used the disable attribute here, and after that I have used a search function with the query as select all from the brand table where the brand ID in I have used the in keyword here as I'm using a subquery here, and I check whether the brand ID is equal to the value we get back from this query, and the subquery select brand ID from the model has brand table where the ID is equal to the model has brand ID that's stored in the product array, and then I'm using a fetch assoc here to obtain row by row that's stored in the array called brand result set and storing that in a variable called brand data, and as the option of this select tag I echo the value that's stored by the name brand name in the array called brand data, and similarly for the select tag related to the product model then there too I have used the attribute as disabled, and I have used a search function here, and then with the query as select all from the model where model ID, and here too I have used the in keyword as we use a subquery here. The subquery select model ID from the model has brand table where the ID is equal to the value that's stored by the name model has brand ID in the array called product, and here too I'm using the fetch assoc function and obtaining the data that's stored in the array called model result set and storing that in a variable called model data, and inside this option tag I echo the value that's stored by the name model name in the array code model data, and as the value of this input tag related to the product title I echo the title of the product that's stored in the array called product, and then after that as the product condition here too I have used a PHP script, and you inside if condition I have checked whether the condition ID that's stored in the array called product is equal to 1. If so, I use the checked attribute for the brand new label, and if not, in the else of this if condition I'm using the checked attribute for the used label. And for the select tag of this product color label, there too I have used the attribute as disabled, and I have opened the PHP script, and then inside that I have used the search function again, and I have used the query as select all from the color table, and I have used an inner join here with the table called product has color. We use the on keyword here to specify which column of the color table is linked with the product has color table. If it tells the color ID column of the color table is equal to the color ID of this product has color table, and then we use the where keyword here, and we check the product ID is equal to the ID that's stored in the array called product. And using the fetch assoc, we obtain the data that's stored in the array called color results set and storing that in a variable called color data. And in the option tag, echo the color name that's stored in the variable called color data. And in the input tag and the button related to this add color, there in both these tags I have used the disable attribute. And then for the product quantity, the input related to the product quantity, there I have used the quantity that's stored in the variable or the array called product data as the value. And then after that, for the cost per item label, there in the input related to that as the value, I have echoed the price that's stored in the array called product and have used the disabled attribute here. And then for the input tag related to the delivery cost within Colombo, there too I have used the delivery fee column that's stored in the array called product data. I echo that value. And then we are not using the disable attribute here, as we are allowing the user to change the delivery cost for the Colombo and out of Colombo. So in the input tag related to the out of column of delivery, there too as the value we echo the delivery fee other that's stored in the array called product. And then similarly for the product description within the text area tags, I echo the description that's stored in the variable called product. And here in the part of displaying the product images, there I have used PHP script and I have created an array and stored that in a variable called image here. And then as we all know, we are allowing the user to insert only three product images. So for all these three image array values, I'm using a default image here. And then I'm using the search function with the query as select all from the product image table, where product ID is equal to the ID of the product array, and then storing that in a variable called product image results it and obtaining the number of rows in it and storing that in a variable called product image num. And then using a for loop here and creating a variable as x and assigning a value as 0, and then check whether the value of x is less than the number of images that's stored in the variable called product image num, and using the increment here. And then using the fetch assoc, obtaining row by row and storing that in a variable called product image data. And then we assigning the variable called image with the variable x with the image path of the product image data array. And then for the image tags inside for the src, I call the variable called image with the value called 0. And similarly for the other two image tags also, I call the variable called image with the value 1 and the image with the value called 2 here. And after that, for this upload images label, I'm using a change product image function here. And then for the button with the text update product, here too I have used a non-click function here as update product. So then let's move to JavaScript file. The change product image function is the same function that we used in the add product.php file. In that process also we use the same function here. And for the information that we are allowing the user to change, we are giving IDs as for the input tag where it displays the title of the product. There I have used the ID as T here. And for the input tag related to the delivery cost within Colombo, there I have used an ID as DWC. And similarly for the input tag related to the delivery cost out of Colombo, they have used an ID as DOC. And then for the text area tag, I have given an ID as D here. And for the image tags, I have given ID as I0 and I1 and also I2. And in the input tag related to this upload images, and there too I have given an ID as image upload. And then I have obtained those elements through those IDs and stored those in a variable called title, the relevant element with the tag called T, and storing that in a variable called title. Similarly the quantity, delivery within Colombo and out of Colombo, and then the description and also the images. And as you all know, we are not able to create a form in JavaScript, so we are using form data here and storing that in a variable called form and appending the value of the variable called title with the name T and appending that to the form that we have created. Similarly the value of the quantity with the name Q and the value of DWC, name DWC, and then the value of DOC with the name DOC, and also the value of description with the name as D. We are appending all these to the form that we have created, and here we are obtaining number of files or the length of the files and storing that in a variable called file count, and using a for loop here. Inside that, creating a variable called x and assigning a value as 0, and check whether the value of x is less than the file count. If so, using an increment here, and inside that I append the relevant image to our form. And after that, as usual, we are creating the new XML HTTP request and storing that in a variable called request here, and then checking the state changes of this request and calling an anonymous function. And inside that, using an if condition and with the conditions as the request.status equal to 200 and the ready state is equal to 4. If so, we obtain the response text and storing that in a variable called response here, and inside that, using an if condition and check whether the response is equal to product has been updated. If so, we are changing the location of the window using this window.location and change the location to myproducts.php file. If the response was not equal to product has been updated, then we alert the response we get back through the server side. And in the open function of this request, we are telling the method that we are using as post method, and then we are sending the information to the update product process.php file, and we are using true here. To depict, we are using ajax method here and using the request.send function, and we send the form with this send function. So then let's move to update product process.php file. At the very beginning, I have started a session, and then I have included the connection.php file, and then using an if condition, I have checked whether a session called p is set. If so, I'm obtaining the value that's stored in the by the name id in the session called p, and storing that in a variable called pid here, and obtaining the values we get from the client side and storing those in relevant variables as the value that we get from the name called t through the post method, and storing that in a variable called title here. And after that, the value that comes from the name called q through the method called post, and storing that in a variable called quantity. Likewise, the dwc, doc, and d, and storing those in variables called dwc, doc, and description. And after that, using an iud function here with the query as update product table, and set the title with the title we get from the client side, and set the quantity from the quantity we get back from the client side, and then the delivery fee column as the value we get from the client side. Similarly, the delivery fee other with the value called doc, and the description with the value called desc or the description, where we use the where condition here. We check whether the id is equal to the pid, and then our message as product has been updated, and then we obtain the number of files that of this file array using this size of function, and storing the number of files in a variable called length here. We using an if condition again here, and check whether the length is less than or equal to 3 and length is greater than 0. If so, as we have described this part earlier, we are creating a variable called allowed image extensions and using and storing an array here with the values as image as jpg, png, and svg plus xml. And after that, we will use an search function here with the query as select all from the product image table, where product id is equal to the product id that we have stored in the variable called pid, and storing the results we get back from the database in a variable called image result set, and obtain the number of rows in it through the num rows, and storing that in a variable called image num. And using a for loop here, creating a variable called y and assigning 0 to it, and check whether value of y is less than the image num. If so, we are using an increment here, and inside this for loop I have obtained the data that's stored in this image array row by row using this fetch assoc, and storing those rows in a variable called image data. And here I have used the unlink function to delete the relevant file with the name as stored in this image path of this array called image data, and we are deleting the relevant image from our database also. So here I'm using an IOD function, and with the query as delete from the product image table where product ID is equal to the PID, and then again using a for loop and creating a variable called x and assigning value as 0, and then check whether the value of x is less than the length, and using an increment here. Inside that I'm using an if condition, and I'm checking whether an array called files with the value as I and the value of this x is set. If so, we storing that in a variable called image file, and here I'm obtaining the type of this image file and storing that in a variable called file extension, and using an if condition here, and I check whether the file extension, the value that's stored in this variable called file extension, is in the array called this allowed image extensions. If so, we are creating an variable called new image extension and not assigning any value to it. And here using an if condition with the condition as file extension is equal to JPEG. If so, we are assigning the new image extension variable with value as .jpeg. And when it comes to the else if condition, we check whether the file extension is equal to PNG. If so, we are assigning the new image extension variable with value as PNG. And if it comes to the next else if condition, where it checks whether the file extension is equal to svg plus xml, so then they're assigning the value of this new image extension as .svg. And after that, we are creating the file name and storing that in a variable called file name. Here we are creating the file name as resource / mobile images / and then we are concat the title, and then we are using an underscore here, and then we concat the value that's stored in the variable called x, and we are using a unique ID here through the concat, and we again concat the new image extension, and then we are using move uploaded file function, and we are obtaining the temporary name of this image, and then we are assigning that image file with this new name. And after that, we are using an IOD function here with the query as insert into product image table, and here we specify the relevant columns as image path and product ID, and we are telling the values as file name and the PID. And in the else of this if condition, we call message as invalid image count, and in the else of the if condition related to the checking the number of images in the variable called length, there echo a message as invalid image count. So then let's see if this is working. And I'm clicking on this update button of this iPhone 13 Pro Max product, and here we can see the category as mobile phones and the brand as Apple and the model as iPhone, and then the product title as iPhone 13 Pro Max here. Then let's change to iPhone 11 here, and we are not able to change these colors, so we can see the colors are loaded. And then let's change the product quantity as 80, and then let's change the delivery cost within Colombo to 1000, and then out of Colombo as 1500, and then let's add some product images, and here I will select these 3 images, and then let's click on this add product button. We can see we directed back to my products page. So then let's move to our database, and then let's see whether this product has updated. So we can see here the product has updated with the name iPhone 11, and then quantity with the value as 80, and then here with the delivery fee column as 1000 and other as 1500. So then let's meet in the next video, and bye for now.